We are the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association.
We are the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association.
Business in Pennsylvania.
And business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Basically two groups of items that you were highlighting in your announcement for the line item vetoes. Let's start with the $65 million in the legislature's operating budget. Why did you target that, and what impact will that have?
Well, first off, we, from the governor's office, called on our agencies to, during the last few months of the last budget year, to reduce their spending and to turn money in. And I think the number was $425 million that our agencies turned back in, and we're trying to, so that it could be used for this coming year's, the year that we're in now, budget. At the same time, we asked during negotiations the legislature to control theirs. Well, not only did they not control it, they increased it. Now, what many people don't know is here in Pennsylvania, we used to have what was called a rainy day fund. Money set aside for emergencies to help balance the budget.
Once upon a time, we really went out of our way to protect that, too, and make sure it was always there.
We certainly did, but that whole concept disappeared during the prior administration, was wiped out. As I said, the cupboards were bare when I came into office, and the demand for money is so high, we have not been able to get to the point to put money in there. Unfortunately, the General Assembly continues to put money into their reserves, basically their cupboard or their rainy day fund. And normally it's a practice to keep 3 months of reserves in there, that the budget, that the General Assembly could operate if the governor and the General Assembly couldn't reach a budget and government had to shut down, they'd be able to pay their people because they are an independent branch of government. And then in the last year or two, and including this year, they had upped it to a 6 month, to over $150 million in reserve. So I'm looking at this saying, what's the logic here? No reserves for the state and $150 million in reserves for the legislature. And not only that, they increased their budget by, I think it's 2%. Might even be 3%. And so that's not right. Mm-hmm. And what we did is line item veto certain aspects of that budget. That money is gone, and they can replace that money with their reserves. Those people are going to get paid if the members of the Senate and members of the House decide to tap into that legislative fund. If they don't decide to tap into that legislative reserve, then that's on them if they're not paying their people. The other aspect of it is that was the $65 million.
Right, and then there was the $7.2 million.
Then there was the $7.2.
The biggest chunk of which, $5 million, was about parking. Talk to us about that.
As you know, Brad, here in Harrisburg, we had a great deal of difficulty a couple of years ago. I had to put, at the direction of the legislature, a receiver into place. Mm-hmm. And the receiver, General Lynch, did a great job working with the people of Harrisburg. But as a result, with the bonds and everything that were out there, they worked on a Harrisburg Strong solution, I think is what they called it. And part of that required that the parking rates were going to go up, and were going to go up significantly. Now, some state employees get parking that gets paid for. The state employees under the governor's office whose parking was taken care of, because the parking rates went up, went into their own pockets and paid for that. The legislature wanted to have $5 million, 2.5 for each branch, each house, set aside for them to give that to their members or to their employees to cover that increase. I didn't think that was fair either. And so not only do they have parking, but they were getting the increase in the parking at the same time. And there were some other appropriations, but $5 million of that 7.2, I think it is, million was for parking itself. And I think in the people here in Harrisburg and around the state hear that, they're going to understand what I did.